Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We hope you found the morning breakout sessions inspirational and educational. I know I did. I learned a lot. I was kind of a dunderhead before this morning, and now I think I'm marginally capable. So I thought those were excellent breakout sessions. We want to say a thank you again to our titanium sponsor, Michael Baker International, and a particular thank you, let's hear it. I can always count on the Michael Baker table, God bless them. And a particular thank you to our luncheon sponsors, Skanska and WSP Parsons Brinkerhoff. So let's hear it for them. I did notice at least 2 more elected officials come in after our session this morning, so I want you to help me welcome the mayor of the great city of Fullerton, the Honorable Jennifer Fitzgerald, and welcome from the Tustin City Council, the Honorable Al Murray. We are especially privileged this afternoon to hear from the mayor of Los Angeles, who has taken time from an incredibly busy schedule to be here with us. And you will hear from him in a moment, but needless to say, this introduction will take just a little while. Eric Garcetti, in addition to being the mayor of Los Angeles, is the first vice chair of the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority. His Back to Basics agenda is focused on job creation and solving everyday problems for LA residents. Eric was elected 4 times by his peers to serve as president of the Los Angeles City Council from 2006 to 2012. From 2001 until taking office as mayor, he served as the council member from the 13th District, which includes Hollywood, Echo Park, Silver Lake, and Atwater Village, all of which were dramatically revitalized under Mayor Garcetti's leadership. A recent editorial in the Los Angeles Times was titled, "LA County Residents Need Alternatives to Sitting in Soul-Crushing Traffic." And let me tell you, as someone who lives in Costa Mesa and works in Century City, I can personally attest to the soul-crushing aspect of the 405. Metro is responding to this challenge with Measure M, which you've heard a little about this morning and you will hear more about this afternoon, one of the largest and most comprehensive transportation plans of our time. We're going to hear about how LA will ease congestion with Measure M, create jobs, and improve quality of life, not only for Los Angeles, but for all of Southern California. So, with that, would you help me welcome the 42nd mayor of the city of Los Angeles and the first vice chair of Metro, the Honorable Eric Garcetti.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and a good afternoon, everybody. It is wonderful to be here with my friends, fellow elected officials, transit geeks everywhere, nasty women, bad hombres, the whole mix we got here today. It is a great joy to be here, and thank you to everybody for inviting me back to be at what is the most extraordinary gathering of leaders in the Southland. Because we all know that transportation isn't some peripheral issue area. It is actually the lens through which we see our lives, the way that we can spend time with our families, the economic competitiveness of our cities and counties and our region. It is the housing challenges we face. It is the environmental mandates that we have before us. It is, in so many ways, really that prism through which the light of Southern California is refracted. And when we do transportation right, we make life better here. And I think that's always an important place for us to remember how we speak about transportation, because if we only have these conversations in the closed rooms where those of us who actually enjoy transportation policy meet, we need to be able to speak plain English to the people who we represent, who want to be able to make it on time to that date where they might fall in love with somebody, spend the rest of their life together, or might want to go to that sports game like the Sparks played in Minneapolis, but they won a championship yesterday, which was great. Working on the Dodgers still, but keep on hoping there. They want to be able to go to that job interview for a dream job, or even take that job when it's offered because they can now make that commute. And once we rehumanize what it is that we're talking about, I think that people will be willing to be our partners. And this is an incredible time for public transportation and transportation in general in Southern California. If you look right now in San Diego County, in Ventura County, in Los Angeles County, I've been telling everybody, no matter where you live, start at the back of the ballot. You probably know who you're going to vote for at the front, but the things that affect your lives the most in every day start at the back of the ballot. The initiatives to improve our cities and our counties together. And I hope all of us are celebrating November 8th because voters approved our traffic relief and transportation infrastructure measures throughout the Southland. At the turn of the last century, we set the standard when it came to urban and suburban streetcar lines. In the middle of the 20th century, we innovated again by leading the way with an incredible freeway system as this country built out that high-tech innovation of its day. And now, if we pass these measures, we can lead in the 21st century. I was just with a member of Congress in my office who visited me in City Hall, Earl Blumenauer. Many of you may know him. He's worked a lot in transportation and active transportation. He's the congressman from Oregon who always has the bike pin on his lapel. And he said there are 24 measures in the country right now at the local level to improve transportation. And he said it's a time of a new federalism, where no matter what your politics are, you come to realize you can't go to Washington, D.C. anymore with an empty hat in hand and hope that you come back with a filled hat. But if you do come with a hat that is half filled, you can actually leave from Washington, D.C. with the hat filled all the way to the top. That in this day and age of fewer dollars, there is still an enthusiasm, bipartisan enthusiasm in Washington, D.C., to be able to help localities who are helping themselves. And given the scope of what we face, our traffic crisis, our economic opportunities, our environmental mandates, we must lead the way, because the alternative is simply unacceptable. We cannot have permanent gridlock. We cannot have an economy that slows to a crawl. And this isn't just a local or regional or even national issue. It's an international issue. Here in the Southland, where half of the goods that come into this country come through from the sea, our ports, and need to move on to those places where we stage those goods and move those goods to the country. This is an American issue that happens to be in Southern California. When we look at this creative crossroads of Southern California, which I think can lay claim to being the northern capital of Latin America and the western capital of the United States and the eastern capital of the Pacific Rim, when our airports, who bring in right now just LAX, one of many airports, and we're excited about what's happening in Ontario next month as we return Ontario to the Inland Empire ownership, the improvements that Burbank, together with Glendale and Pasadena, are making the Bob Hope airports, the ongoing work that we have in all of our air travel. Let me just give you one statistic. LAX is now the #1 airport in the world of origination and destination. We're ranked 6th or 7th for overall traffic, but for at least for a mayor, the most important statistic is how many people get off those planes and go into your city. Those other 6 ahead of us, it's only because of their hub traffic when people fly through only the airport. But we're now the busiest airport that people actually get on the planes and get off the planes in the world. So this isn't just a local issue, it is an international issue. In LA County, we're facing about 2.5 more million people in coming years. And our residents already spend an average of 81 hours a year stuck in traffic. When people hear that, it always sounds low. That's 81 hours where you're not moving. That's not all the hours you're actually crawling in traffic. 81 hours where you literally are not moving. And an annual cost of about $1,700 per person, according to research out of Texas A&M. When you think about the millions of hours and the billions of dollars that we literally waste because we have not done our jobs, it is time for us to figure out a better way forward. We lose in Los Angeles County 622 million hours stuck in traffic every year at a total cost of $13.3 billion. Imagine putting that back into our economy. Imagine putting that time back into our lives, to tuck our children into bed, to be able to see our parents and grandparents, to be able to spend time in the places that we want to explore in Southern California. And the fact is, across Southern California, our future right now is on the line. And let's be blunt. As we know Washington, D.C. isn't going to save us, they can partner with us. And as much as we want Sacramento to act, and I hope that we can do that in a bipartisan way on a transportation session that seems to never end, and we want it to end with a good outcome, it's really going to be up to us to empower ourselves. When I took office as mayor of the city of Los Angeles, the expectation was that I would focus only on solutions inside my city limits. But I came to realize very quickly that I had a responsibility to all of you in Southern California. The doors that I could open up when I talked to a city manager in Norwalk said, well, nobody knows who we are when we go to Washington, D.C. and want to talk about the necessity of widening the I-5. Or when I sat down with my friends in Ontario who said, why is it that Los Angeles still owns this airport? We think we can run it better. It's those conversations where I came to realize we can look at each other not as adversaries, this zero-sum game of competing, hey, I got a company to move across one city border to the next, but the jobs didn't come to Southern California, they just stayed there. Or I'm going to seize my territory and try to claim that as my identity rather than a joint identity. I think we've really broken down those walls. Just in LA County alone, I meet quarterly. I've convened all 88 cities and our 5 supervisors who have the unincorporated areas every quarter to talk about those things that our citizens don't really care have borders between them. Because you work in one city and you live in another. You shop in another one, even across county lines when we look at the work that we're doing now, for instance, in Measure M, moving one of our rail lines further east, the Gold Line, or affectionately known as the Brain Train because it goes from Caltech to Azusa Pacific, and soon we'll be getting to Claremont. Why should it stop right there in East Los Angeles County where West San Bernardino residents, and they spend more time together than with members of their own or residents of their own counties at the opposite ends? So we're going to go through with the Gold Line Construction Authority all the way to Montclair, over the border, and hopefully get all the way to Ontario. Because for folks that live right there in Claremont, they'd much rather be able to have a good way to get to Ontario Airport than to try to slog all the way to LAX or to get over to Burbank. When we start thinking about ways that we can connect, whether it's the Green Line in LA County to get all the way to Metrolink so folks can come here to Anaheim, or the ways that we can begin to look at the modes that already do intersect between Ventura County and Los Angeles County through Metrolink, we begin to talk about people's lives instead of our own bureaucratic needs. And at the start of the campaign for our measure, which is Measure M, we talked about how this would be able to improve your life. In fact, our tagline, it will literally change your life. And when we talked to people in focus groups, what was interesting about it is they said, keep going further and keep going longer. Any of you who are elected officials know this is a highly unusual thing to actually poll people and they say, oh, you're only doing it for 30 years? And then we say, well, what if it's 40 years and your numbers go up? And they say, well, what if it was 50 years and the numbers go up? And then we said, well, what if it doesn't sunset? And it went up even higher. And when we talk to people as to why that was, because in our business, usually people trust us for a few years to try something, then show us that you're actually doing it. They said, we look at transportation the same way we would as education. It's not like we do a property tax for 20 years and then say, and then our kids can decide whether they want schools or not. People need transportation, and it is at our own peril that we don't plan that in a steady, permanent way. Because if you look up north, BART right now, which built a good public transportation system, is going to voters just to try to pass a 2/3 measure on maintenance. You look at Washington, D.C., which built a great transportation system as well, but people died on it in this past year. And lines were shut down because maintenance isn't politically popular to fund. Building things is great. You get all the glory, you get all the plaudits, but actually doing the responsible thing of making sure that our children and our children's children will have a great, clean, and functioning system, that's a little bit tougher. But we're also looking at these initiatives not just as transportation. In fact, one of the greatest refractions of this prism is what it will do for our economy. I was up in Palmdale just a few days ago in a great old aircraft hangar next to a NASA hangar. It's right up there where the B-2 bomber was built and tested. It's where some of the greatest innovations in aerospace that this nation and this world's ever seen were. And Los Angeles City owns some land up there. And Kinki Shario, which is the company that won the bid to build our rail cars, is up there. They hope to provide 200 jobs, and they have over 350 jobs. And I talked to those workers who a generation ago probably would have been working in aerospace, would have gotten that $50 an hour job that allows them to support a family and have a middle-class dream come true. And they said, this is the new aerospace job. And if Southern California will invest, companies will come here not just to build out San Diego and Orange County and San Bernardino and Riverside and Los Angeles and Ventura's transportation needs. They will build that for the country out of Southern California. It will become one of our greatest exports to have those companies that build electric buses, that build rail cars, that provide the next century's infrastructure needs right here out of Southern California. And so we look at this as jobs as well. In fact, Measure M, our measure, will produce, according to Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation, Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, a nonprofit, 465,000 jobs. And these are recession-proof, because sometime in our lifetime there will be another recession. But if we have this sort of investment there, you keep people employed, you keep them moving forward, and you keep our economy recycling those dollars on our main streets. Measure M is really looking in our county to ensure that the rest of the Southland is plugged in to each other and vice versa, from Camarillo to Canoga Park, from Palm Springs to Palmdale, from Newport Beach to Venice Beach. And here's the thing, we all want this. We all know what it will do. We know it can reduce our congestion by 15% versus what it will be. And that's just congestion. That says nothing about our commutes. And those are highly conservative numbers on the slowest train. We know the innovation that is bringing to public transportation, and I want to thank my fellow board members, including the chair of our Metro Board, John Fasana, who is here, Phil Washington, our CEO, because what's happening is we are becoming a public-private partnership capital here in Southern California that I hope we will all be a part of moving forward, too. Phil Washington in Denver, we're a more capitalist country than places like Canada or Western Europe, and yet somehow those places, which are more socialist on the political spectrum, use public-private partnerships all the time for their infrastructure. And we've not been able to crack that nut, besides for some toll roads and one bad meter deal in Chicago. Nobody has been able to figure out how to do that. But in Denver, what was it, 11 years early, you said? 11 years early and maybe 70% the cost. They now have a train that goes to their planes, like we're building at LAX, something that was done in a way that took advantage of the private sector's ingenuity and competition, let them put all the R&D up front before they bid. And instead of saying, we know the only way to solve this problem and we're going to figure it out, now you bid on it and people pay sometimes 25 or 50% more because it's not their ideas, we're letting people say, no, we want to get from here to there. You tell us how you would do that. And when you have 3 or 4 or 5 companies competing, you get the best idea. And it's almost like the X Prize. People pay for that ingenuity up front. And so as we look at that, we're already in Los Angeles, even before Measure M passes, getting unsolicited bids coming forward for our Office of Extraordinary Innovation that allows us to have the private sector help us fulfill public needs. And for anybody who fears that this is somehow taking away the public oversight, nothing could be further from the truth. We will still own the real estate and the land. We will still make sure that we have good middle-class public jobs for the transportation network. But people want things to get done more quickly. And at this moment in time when money is so cheap, I urge you all, whether it's your city, your county, or even if we look at regional initiatives, and certainly at the state level, now is the time to strike, to ask voters. When money is this cheap, you can bond and you could advance this money now at a rate that is much less than what construction inflation will be for the next 30 or 40 years. Money isn't free, but it's essentially free. And you give 2, 3, 5% return to infrastructure dollars that are waiting to land someplace, don't let those go to some other part of the country. Let them come here to Southern California. Measure M will do so much. I don't want to detail everything in it. It has 10 different light rail lines that will be finished or begun and finished. We have multiple busways, BRTs, that will build on the success in the San Fernando Valley of the most successful now bus rapid transit line in the country, the Orange Line. It'll fix our freeways. It gives local return for our municipalities to make those decisions on intersections and streets that need to be paved and stop signs and stoplights that need to be improved. It really also looks forward to the future and technology. as we look at autonomous vehicles and maybe want our BRT lanes to also be autonomous vehicle lanes, or we want to look at making sure that we have that connectivity at our metro stops to car share and to bike share, the active transportation links that we all want to see and protected bikeways. 1,000 bikes were just put downtown Los Angeles, and we're rolling them out in Venice. Santa Monica just did the same. We're going to have about 5 different neighborhoods in the coming year that will see that. There's a revolution underway, but the way that we approach it is by making sure that we don't have a one-size-fits-all attitude. One person may take public transportation once a month. Another person may depend on it every single day. Some people love bikes, some people hate them. Some people will never get out of their car, but they are excited that somebody in front of them is going to get out of their car. And so when you look at how you communicate this to everybody, you have to figure out what works for all of us. I think people also understood, as we looked at this, that our financial modeling showed that we can build projects faster and cheaper if we have a consistent and predictable stream of funds. So much that we do in government, and particularly in transportation, is feast and famine. And so no wonder people sometimes say, we don't trust you. Each time we hear it's going to continue and get the job done, but you never have enough money to finish the job. I mentioned what's happening in Bay Area and Washington, D.C., but we need to build systems that actually last. You know, that old X up over here, here's the construction, and the maintenance is almost zero when you start, and eventually when you finish the construction, your maintenance costs replace that. It's time for us to be able to do that and to look at a way that we can look our voters straight in the eye and say, don't worry, you have yourselves covered by what you voted on. We have something that will consistently last even long after we're gone to make sure that our public transportation and our transportation system is second to none. And, you know, the last thing I wanted to tell you is I think in all of this work that we do, we need to make sure that we're stealing the best ideas from each other. We're not saying Los Angeles has all the answers. In fact, we want to partner with Orange County on the next phase, and San Bernardino and Ventura, and each one of those counties that touches us, and even those ones that are further away. As we look at our state transportation system, we've got to be on the same page. Southern California always gets its lunch eaten by Northern California. The Southern California region is a donor region traditionally to the federal government. But something's changing when we do work together. We have a great graphic over at Metro that showed, you know, the United States of America and per capita dollars from the federal funding for transportation. It used to be a big bubble around Boston and a big bubble around Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and we had a small pebble here in Southern California. Well, that switched. The big balloon is now over here. And I get calls from our transportation secretary and other officials who say, by the way, we've got this funding source. You guys are the only people with money. We can't guarantee, but you should apply for that. And already we've got $3.3 billion, just while I've been mayor in 3 years, from those federal grants and loans that help us accelerate the work that we're doing. So Washington, D.C., while it's a difficult place to do business, is still a place eager to do business, even with the constraints that it has. And they will do business with a region that comes together. When I bring this down to the people, I want to end with a story. Kristen Spiato is a woman that I told the story of at my State of the City address this year. She lives in Ontario, and she works in a high-tech company in downtown Los Angeles. This is a job that she said she wouldn't have been able to take if we hadn't had the Gold Line. She drives from Ontario to the Gold Line, takes the Gold Line in. And she said that drive, if it was just a drive by itself, would have taken too much time away from my family. She said, I'm a new mother. She just gave birth to her first child. Now she uses public transit, a combination of public transit and driving, gets 2.5 hours back each week to spend with her 1-year-old son. That's what is at stake. That's what this is about. Ladies and gentlemen, all of you in this room working together have gotten us this far. Can you think of another region across such complicated political lines that would bring this many people together in a room like this today? That's exceptional. It should be embraced. It should be the model. We have made government probably as complicated in Southern California as anywhere in America. In my county alone, 88 cities, 20-something levels of government. If you have a mosquito problem, that's a different government than an air problem, than a water problem, than a transportation problem, than a health problem, than a police problem. We haven't actually made it very logical, but what can break that down is us, the human element. The ability for us to be able to say, at the end of the day, transportation is not about the billions of dollars. It's not even about the great number of lines that you built and you can leave behind. It's not the number of stations that you have. It's not the number of lanes in a freeway. It's about the number of hours you get back to do the things that make life worth living. And I think at the end of our days, we look back on two things in our time on earth. Who did we know, and what did we do? I've been honored to know so many of you in this room, and I hope that you're honored to know each other, to call this place home, a place that the most improbable collisions of humanity occur, a place where cultures collide to come up with things like Korean short rib tacos and trucks that land on your block, things that seem almost impossible happen every single day predictably here. But secondly, what did we do? Let us say that we were the generation of builders, that just like those at those inflection points in our history, in the early part of the 20th century, in the post-war era, and now I believe in this decade of the 2010s, built again great cities and a great region for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. That was outstanding. That brings us to our 2016 awards presentation. Each year, Mobility 21 honors individuals and organizations that have made a significant contribution and impact on our region. Over the past 14 years, Mobility 21 has recognized top industry leaders for their contributions to improve mobility for the businesses and communities of Southern California. This year's nominees are especially worthy of recognition by Mobility 21. I think the only contested year, if you look on the screen, was 2011. I believe in that year the election was rigged, because as you know, everything is rigged now. The American League playoffs are rigged, the presidential election is rigged, so it's all rigged. So anyway, our first award recognizes the Private Sector Leader of the Year. You're going to see a video in a moment, but South African-born entrepreneur, inventor, and engineer Elon Musk is the force behind Tesla, SpaceX, and SolarCity. He has made startling advances in electric cars, space exploration, and solar energy. Mr. Musk has been likened to early industrial titans, Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, and John D. Rockefeller. Elon Musk could not be here with us today. He's packing for Mars, but no, seriously, it's hard. If you're going to get one check bag and one carry-on, it's tough. It's 4 years there and 4 years back, so talk about underwear issues. But he has extended his thanks to Mobility 21 and our 6,000-plus members for this honor. The next award is, in my personal opinion, the most deserved award you will ever hear about, and it's probably equally sad. And that is a recognition of a transportation leader that was beyond iconic, and that was Marion Bergeson, who passed away on July 6th. Marion was a very good friend of mine for 30 years. She was a mentor to me. We served together on a number of agencies, and you're going to hear a lot about her history of achievement, not just in transportation, but in education in this video. But I just want to add one brief personal note, and that for those of you who knew her, and many of you in this room did, she was just an extraordinary woman. Not for what she did, but for who she was and the person and the leader that she was. I've been to 1,000 events like this over the years with Marion, and when you walk in the door with her, she was besieged by people who wanted to say hello, people who knew her, people who didn't know her, but just wanted to say hello and introduce themselves and tell her how much they admire her. I can't think of anyone who will be more missed in this state in so many ways, but certainly in transportation when you look at the handprint she left in her long, long career of public service. She and my wife Sharon were about as close as you can get. They had at least one night a week date night for many years, and she was just an incredible person. And by the way, a very funny person, which many people did not realize because they often didn't get to see that side of her, but she had an extraordinary sense of humor, along with her other 1,200 talents. So join me in this video that'll tell you a little bit more about Marion Bergeson.
Mobility 21 is proud to honor Marion Bergeson's contribution and legacy to the transportation community with the 2016 Tribute Award. Marion Bergeson was a pioneering Orange County politician and was the first woman to serve both in the state Senate and Assembly. She was Secretary of Education, ran for Lieutenant Governor, was an educator, Orange County Supervisor, two-term appointee to the California Transportation Commission, and community activist. Bergeson joined the California Transportation Commission in 2004 and served as chair in 2007.
Marion Bergeson called me one day out of the blue and mentioned that she was about to retire from the California Transportation Commission, but she had told no one. And she called me specifically because she said, "You would be good at this." And I laughed and I said, "But Marion, I don't know anything about transportation, and certainly not the level of detail." She says, "Oh, no, you'll get it. You should apply for this job. I want you to take this job." And that was how the first start of her encouraging me to file an application with the governor's office to be considered as her successor.
During her time as the first woman to serve in the state Senate, Marion led the consolidation of 7 separate entities in Orange County into one, the Orange County Transportation Authority.
Marion Bergeson had an incredible lasting impact, not only in the state of California and Orange County, but OCTA specifically. She sat most recently as a member of the California Transportation Commission and as the chair of the California Transportation Commission. And in that role, she not only advocated for transportation investment statewide, but she really understood our local needs here in Orange County, and the projects that surround us today truly have her mark on them.
Well, first of all, I have to say she was a wonderful person. She's kind, intelligent, generous, very, very nice to work with, but not a pushover. When she was down to business, she knew what she was doing, she knew what she had to accomplish. You know, in Orange County, she played a pivotal role. She's the mother, if you will, of the OCTD and the OCTA. She really was the one that pushed that across the goal line, some years ago. Her legacy in Orange County and the school districts and the transit system in the state of California are just fantastic testimonies to her.
Mobility 21 is honored to recognize Marion Bergeson with the 2016 Tribute Award and shares this special memorial with her family and friends in transportation.
And we are especially honored to have here with us to accept the award Marion's daughter, Julie McCormick, who I'm very proud to say, as a former mayor of Costa Mesa, is the principal of College Park School in Costa Mesa. So would you please welcome Julie McCormick.
Thank you very much, Peter. It is such an honor. It's so humbling to be here, to be able to accept this award for my mom. And I know how much she loved everything that she did, her public service. Next to education, as I'm sure you all know, she loved it was all about education, but transportation was right up there. She had such a passion for that, and for so many of you that worked with her for all these years, she thrived on that. She would have loved to have been here today. And so it is with deep gratitude that I accept this in her honor, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Julie. Just to illustrate Marion's sense of humor, I will tell you one of her favorite jokes I heard her use 1,000 times, and it always would bring people upright in their seats, and she would say, you know, it's pretty amazing. On the 55, a woman delivered a baby in her car on the 55. But the most amazing thing was she wasn't pregnant when she got on. So, okay, our last award is for an outstanding organization. It is for the 2016 Public Sector Leader of the Year Award. This year alone, the landscape of transportation was transformed with the grand opening of Metro's Expo line in Los Angeles County, and with RCTC's much-awaited State Route 91 freeway widening under construction. That is a marvelous project to watch. Southern Californians can look forward to another milestone in mobility. With a united voice on numerous state policy issues, in no other year has the impact and strength of the Self-Help Counties Coalition been more apparent or more significant. The Self-Help Counties Coalition includes 20 member transportation agencies delivering voter-approved transportation sales tax measures throughout California. I will look forward to making it 21 with members like Ventura County and their initiative. Please join me in viewing this video in honor of the Self-Help Counties Coalition.
Mobility 21 is proud to recognize the Self-Help Counties Coalition with the 2016 Public Sector Leader of the Year Award. The coalition is a group of 20 counties representing 81% of the population of California, whose residents have voted to support a local sales tax in order to fund transportation projects in their counties.
The Self-Help Counties Coalition was created, I think, in response to the needs of local communities, first of all, to find mobility solutions, funding, and reform that work for each of them.
Self-Help Counties Coalition was created so that we could all focus on our core purpose, which was to deliver on the promises that we made to the voters. Our mantra for decades has been promises made, promises kept.
Thank you, Mobility 21, for recognizing the key role the Self-Help Counties Coalition and its members play in making California's economy hum and ensuring the quality of life we've come to expect.
Since 1992, Self-Help Counties have been able to contribute over $43.4 billion in Southern California and over $95 billion statewide to transportation projects from local sales tax measures.
Self-help counties have become the backbone of transportation funding in California, and they've done that because they've secured the trust of voters by consistently delivering the needed transportation improvements that voters have approved.
Well, it's become a movement across the state of California to coordinate and help, and counties become self-help counties. The reason that the concept of self-help works is because it's based on trust.
Perhaps most importantly, the Self-Help Counties Coalition helped pass legislation instituting local tolling authority and design build policies.
When you think about completing projects, you obviously think about having the money in the bank to pay for the total cost of a project. And that would be impossible without the local sources from the sales tax measures. In the past, 90% of the funding came from federal and state government. Today, it's only 30%. 70% come from local measure, which is the sales tax measures. So it's hard to imagine what this region would look like, what congestion would look like, what air quality would look like without these local sales tax measures.
Self-help counties, such as San Bernardino, operate under a bond of trust with the voters, and thus necessarily have to be good stewards of the resources that the voters have entrusted us with.
The self-help program allows the county to keep transportation projects moving. In a vast county as large as Los Angeles County, it's important to keep those transportation projects moving. And the self-help counties actually help us do that.
The contribution of self-help counties to the economy of Southern California is incredibly important. Over the years, we've seen the federal contribution, the state contribution to transportation projects shrink. And if it wasn't for the self-help counties, we wouldn't be getting around as well as we are.
Mobility 21 is proud to recognize the Self-Help Counties Coalition with the 2016 Public Sector Leader of the Year Award for its contributions to transportation and infrastructure improvements in California.
So we are thrilled to present the Tribute Award to the Self-Help Counties Coalition. There you go. Don't drop it. Yeah, good.
Thank you very much, Mobility 21, and to our board members. The others are out at an event with the mayor, but would be here for that. I will be very brief and just say that, as Ann Mayer mentioned on her video, we have a saying at Self-Help Counties, it's promises made, promises kept, and it's really a bond that we have with the voting public. So as you here in Southern California today have an opportunity to have 3 measures before you in just a few short days, we would ask you to go out and to talk to 10 people and to ask them to support Measure A, Measure AA, and Measure M here locally. We're the backbone of infrastructure in California. The executive directors of these organizations are really the policy innovators that are delivering not only the funding, but also the innovative new delivery mechanisms that are modernizing how transportation is delivered in this state. They're wonderful people. They're the brains of infrastructure in our state and also the funders. So thank you for this honor on behalf of this organization, Mobility 21, and we will keep our promises if you keep giving us your faith. So thank you very much.
And our final award is one that I am both honored and thrilled to talk about, and that is our Lifetime Achievement Award, which is going to, and you'll hear from him in a moment, Will Kempton. If you want to talk about someone, think about someone whose legacy just is writ large up and down the state of California in transportation, you'd have a hard time finding someone with a larger profile in that area than Will. From the northern tip of the state to the southern tip of San Diego County, you can go county by county and see his work. And I think it's because of the experience that he brings to all of the jobs he's held on both the private sector and the public sector. And the net of all of that is he knows how to get things done. We worked together at OCTA. It was always a pleasure to work with him because I enjoy most working with problem solvers. People who say, okay, I don't particularly care how it's always been done or how it should be done. I just want to get it solved. Let's come up with a solution. And that is Will. So he has had an extraordinary career. You're going to hear a little bit about it right now, so I would invite you again to look at the screen.
Mobility 21 is proud to recognize Will Kempton with the 2016 Lifetime Achievement Award. A transportation innovator and manager, Will has more than 43 years of experience in transportation, public service, and government affairs.
There is no one in transportation that doesn't know Will Kempton, doesn't know his great ability to problem solve. No one understands the system better than Will, and his legacy will live on for decades and decades.
Will most recently served as Executive Director of the California Transportation Commission.
Will has been such a strong leader in so many different positions, and I think it's really been because he is very opinionated, he is very persistent, and when Will tells you what he thinks, you believe him.
Throughout his career, Will moved between public and private posts, which began at Caltrans in 1973. In 1985, Will assumed the role of Executive Director of the Santa Clara County Traffic Authority, and in 1992, he became a partner in a Sacramento advocacy firm.
Will brings a deep understanding of transportation issues based on decades of public and private experiences. Even today, he continues to be very active in transportation policy conversations, both at the state and federal level.
From 2004 to 2009, Will served as the director of Caltrans, overseeing an annual operating budget of more than $13.8 billion and 22,000 employees. He also spent nearly 4 years as CEO of the Orange County Transportation Authority from 2009 to 2013.
Will Kempton's deserving of a Lifetime Achievement Award because he really is the father of transportation in California. And that means someone who has seen all angles of transportation. I mean, he's seen it from the state side, local government side, as well as from the private side. And bringing that level of knowledge is really critical.
Mobility 21 is proud to recognize Will Kempton with the 2016 Lifetime Achievement Award for his dedication and commitment to enhancing mobility and the quality of life in Southern California.
I do want to add just one personal note before Will comes out. I don't know if any of you are aware of this. He's a two-handicap golfer, and he taught me everything I know about golf. So if you've ever seen me play, Will taught me from scratch. I wasn't even playing golf before I met him, so I'm grateful to him for that. Would you please welcome to receive his Lifetime Achievement Award, Will Kempton.
Thank you, Kurt Pringle, for saying father and not grandfather. Let me just say, my mother never taught me to take a compliment well. And so I can talk to you and get very emotional, or I can read some words that I've written down, but they do come from the heart. First, I want to thank the Board of Directors of Mobility 21 for this much appreciated recognition. When you've been doing something for 43 years, it's very gratifying to know that just maybe you made a difference, and even better, that someone noticed. This honor means a great deal to me. Over the years in the transportation business, I have been privileged to work with terrific people. I've been associated with some great organizations, and I have come to know some very remarkable individuals. Marion Bergeson, Lucy Dunn, and Peter Buffa, to name a few. And there are so many others. Yes, Art Leahy, even you. So as I ride off into the sunset at the end of this year, no, really, I mean it this time, I will always have fond memories. I will always have fond memories of my time here in Orange County and Southern California. I want to thank my family for their unconditional love and support. My wife Beverly, my son Mark, and his partner Kasia are here today, and I want to express my deepest gratitude to Mobility 21 and all of you for this award. Thank you very much.
I just want to add one note. When Will says he's going to ride off into the sunset, we know that's not true. I've said the same to Will and Art Leahy. We gave each of you 3 retirement parties. So we've taped the last one. So in the future, we're just going to rerun the tape of the last one. So, okay. We now get to hear from a representative of our titanium sponsor, Michael Baker International. And that is Anna Lanton, Senior Vice President and Western Region Director of Michael Baker International, and she is going to introduce our keynote luncheon speaker. So would you please welcome from Michael Baker International, Anna Lanton.
Okay, you might ask, what does human trafficking and transportation have to do with one another? Did you know right here in Southern California, we live in one of the global hubs of human trafficking? From forced labor to prostitution, criminal organizations are using our buses, trains, airports, highways, and roadways to transport their goods, human beings. Recently, the United States Department of Transportation announced their charge to end human trafficking, and the word has spread to regional and local transportation agencies across our country. OCTA, Metro, and other agencies have launched campaigns to lead the fight to end human trafficking. Our keynote speaker is Nola Brantley. She's the founder of Nola Brantley Speaks. She is a nationally acclaimed advocate, raising awareness to end human trafficking. Nola is a human trafficking survivor and has worked with municipal and law enforcement agencies and services across helpless survivors, has trained thousands of professionals. Michael Baker International is proud to sponsor today's summit, and we look forward to learning more about this important issue. Take a look at this video, and let's listen to Nola as she shares her journey and passion to shed light on human trafficking.
Hello, I'm Secretary of Transportation Anthony Fox. It's estimated that right now, around the world, there are more than 27 million people being held against their will. 27 million people who every day are being traded, sold, coerced, or forced into labor or prostitution. All victims of modern-day slavery, and many of them are right here in America. That's why I want to echo President Obama's call for us to renew our commitment to bringing an end to human trafficking. We have a responsibility to make sure that America's roads and rails and other routes of transportation are not being used to traffic people into slavery. That's also why DOT has brought together private and public stakeholders and formed the Transportation Leaders Against Human Trafficking Partnership. To date, we've trained almost all of our 55,000 U.S. DOT employees to identify and report instances of human trafficking. The open road and sea and sky have always been places where people feel free. It is up to us to make sure they actually are. So please take a moment to learn about the signs of human trafficking. Learn who to call when you see something that's not quite right, because what you see could literally set someone else free.
I, like so many people, never thought, never came to mind about child sex trafficking right here in Los Angeles County.
I had no idea that this population of children existed.
You always think about it as something that's in like a third world country. And even though I grew up in the inner city, I had no clue that it was this prevalent, that it was this much of an epidemic.
These children are not out there because they want to be.
They are not criminals. They are not simply reduced to child prostitutes.
How can I go through working with youth all these many years and not know that children were being sexually exploited? I wish that I knew then what I know now.
The average age of entry into the commercial sex industry in the United States is 12 years old. So training and education on this issue is critical. We must learn about the dynamics of the commercial sex industry. We must understand the business model and that these children are the product, and we must protect these children who are already so vulnerable and in such desperate need of our help and protection.
We have been duped into believing that we are less than and we don't matter. We are not someone's personal bank nor their personal property.
If a passenger walks up to me and tries to let me know that someone could be a potential victim of sex trafficking, we can press a button and it will silently send an alarm, and the sheriffs will respond appropriately, whatever their training is, how they see fit. And I also thank the passenger, and like I said, I try to keep it as confidential because I want them to be the one to feel safe, that they can make these type of reports and they will continue to feel comfortable to know that the bus is a safe haven.
Please help me welcome to the podium our keynote speaker, Nola Brantley.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, transportation professionals. It is an honor and pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. To be honest with you, it's beyond my wildest imagination and dreams that I would ever have the opportunity to talk in front of a crowd of this many professionals, given where I started at. And so I want to thank you for being part of my dream and part of my journey. This is really super incredible for me personally. As I was introduced, my name is Nola Brantley, and I am the CEO of an organization that's located here in Southern California named Nola Brantley Speaks. And my organization provides training and education to professionals across all disciplines. I spend a large majority of my time training professionals that are in disciplines such as social services or the juvenile courts or advocates, rape crisis counselors, and I enjoy training those professionals because they do come in direct contact with these victims. But what's important to me is that we're involving professionals across all sectors. We don't have enough police or social workers to respond to an issue so pervasive without the eyes and ears of every member of the community. So I appreciate the opportunity to bring you into that circle. So this issue of human trafficking, and more specifically child sex trafficking, has a very, very, very personal meaning to me because, as you've heard on the first slide, I am a survivor of child sex trafficking. I grew up in a major metropolitan area, the San Francisco metropolitan area, and at the age of 15, I was victimized by a child sex trafficker who trafficked me between the ages of 15 and 18 years old. During the time that I was being trafficked, I rode buses, I rode trains, I rode airplanes, and my situation of trafficking was, unique in some ways, being a child and being so exposed. I was even trafficked onto cruise ships. Oftentimes when I was on these various forms of transportation, I was scared, and I felt alone, and I did want help, but I didn't know how to ask for help. And so I think it's really critical that I'm having the opportunity to speak to you all today because I regularly was on the buses and the trains and the airplanes and the cruise ships as a victim of human trafficking. Well, thankfully, and lucky and blessed and all of the above, I've been able to overcome that and go on to do great things with my life. I've been able to become a nationally known advocate. Thank you. Fighting on behalf of victims of human trafficking, more specifically children who are being sex trafficked. And in that position, as was shared in my bio, I've been able to train over 50,000 professionals in the field. And I've also been able to establish 3 organizations that are dedicated to providing direct services to victims, as well as providing education and training to the community. Human trafficking, as you heard from the DOT, is a global problem, and you see that it brings in a whole lot of money, $150 billion global industry. You also heard that there's over 27 million people that are enslaved. However, our State Department has only identified 40,000 survivors. So although we have a huge problem, we have a lot of work to do to identify survivors and to provide help to these individuals. As we bring it a little closer into the state of California, in California, we have a good thing happening. We have more survivors that have been reported to the National Human Trafficking Resource Center than anywhere else, so that's great. But there's also some connections to that for sure. According to the FBI, there are 13 hotspots across the United States for child sex trafficking. And unfortunately, we have 3 of the 13 here in California in the San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego metropolitan areas. So while we're identifying victims, and that's a good thing, we also have an abundance of victims in our state. We're a very densely populated state with an abundance of foster care youth, and you'll see the tie into that in just a few minutes. Looking at some stats coming closer in now to Southern California, we definitely have a problem in the southern part of the state. As you can see, in Los Angeles County, it's known as a major hub, with 75% of the victims of child sex trafficking being foster care youth, which means they already were removed from their homes because of abuse and neglect. In Orange County, we have the sheriff naming it as a prime target for sex trafficking. And in San Diego, where we just conducted a very large-scale study, it's known as the second largest criminal industry or underground economy, bringing in over $810 million in annual revenue. So in Southern California, we have a big problem. We have a big problem in California, and we have a big problem in our country as it relates to human trafficking. We also have the involvement of gangs. Starting back in about 2012, the California Attorney General started to note that, gangs were getting involved in human trafficking, and indeed, they were beginning to take on human trafficking as their #1 crime because it is a high-profit, renewable crime. When you sell drugs or you sell a gun and you sell it, then it's gone. But if you sell a human being, you can sell that human being over and over again. And if it's a 13-year-old little girl, well, you can really sell her over and over and over and over and over again. looking at the business model, and don't get caught up too much in that Denver makes $31,000, Seattle makes $18,000. I don't think we know the exact amounts, but this is an example of the weekly earnings that one trafficker is making that's trafficking human beings. I think the important thing is not how much they're making in one state versus another, but to understand that all of that money is being made based on a product that are human beings, and in many cases, children who have not even reached the age of adult or consent. So people often ask, well, where do these traffickers get these children from? And they really get them from anywhere that children are, to be honest with you. But there are some places that they target, like the schools, like county buildings where kids go to court, like group homes, but definitely bus stops and bus stations and train stations, as well as victims also get victimized through things like the social media. And just to kind of go off script for one minute, make sure you're talking to all of your own children about social media. Because the only time I see kids that don't fit the typical profile of risk, and vulnerability get victimized is through social media. You can have a completely protected kid be lured through social media and end up being a victim. So just be aware of that in terms of your own children and social media. However, the recruitment truly happens any place where children are. So one of the major risk factors to children getting sex trafficked is them running away. I've worked with over 1,000 children that were victims and survivors of child sex trafficking, and I would say probably 90% of them or more were running away at the time that the sex trafficker or the recruiter met them. When they run away, they're in immediate need for everything: food, clothing, shelter, and yes, transportation. Sometimes transportation is the first need that they need to get from where they're running away from to their next point. And oftentimes, unfortunately, the exploiters or traffickers will approach them when they're trying to get these basic needs met, even at bus stops and train stations or on buses, and bring them into the commercial sex industry, lure them through tricking them into believing they can take care of them. So if you look at the numbers here, there was close to 500,000 reports of missing children made to law enforcement. This was in 2015. And in that same year, 1 in 5 runaways were possibly commercially sexually exploited children. So that shows you how closely related running away and child sex trafficking are now. There's many, many ways you can identify these victims. However, I wanted to point out some ways that you may be able to identify them more easily if you're a professional working in the transportation industry. So a few things. Oftentimes these individuals are under someone else's control. So they're not really free to move about, to really speak for themselves. They may not be holding their own ID or passport. They may show a lot of signs of being fearful or nervous. Oftentimes, they also are not aware of what city they're in. They oftentimes are also not aware of what time it is of the day or night because they're disoriented from being moved around. And then one other thing I would also add is that they could be traveling a long distance and not have any personal possessions. And so it can seem awkward, So you do want to keep your eyes open for individuals that may appear to have these identifying factors. You can also go on to any one of our government websites and type in human trafficking victims and get a more comprehensive list of identifying factors as well. So the call to action here for you today from myself as a survivor and a leader in this movement, as well as from the Mobility 21 Summit, is to be the ears, to be the eyes, right? And like I said when I started off, I trained a lot of professionals. I trained judges. I trained everyone that you saw in that video, I trained. The cops, the judges, social workers, anyone that touches children in Los Angeles County, in Southern California, I'm really training on this issue. But I like being here today because you're not my typical audience of individuals that work with kids. But you're a much bigger audience, you see, than those that I usually train, which says to me, we have such a greater chance of fighting the issue of human trafficking when we educate the entire community, knowing that we all can be the ears and eyes that reach out to a victim. And if you ever find yourself where you feel like I've identified a victim and I don't have a way to reach out to them, and I don't think it's going to be safe, right, to even talk to them, if nothing else, just give them a gentle look. Give them your eye contact. Because one thing that I always felt when I was a victim and I was riding transportation, the thing that I felt more than anything else was that I was invisible. So even someone's eye contact with me to let me know, maybe I can't help you in this moment, but I do see you and I recognize that you need help, would have really made a big difference in my life. And so thank you so much for your time and attention. I really, really appreciated the opportunity to be here and presenting to you all today. The National Human Trafficking Resource Hotline number is up there. It's always a resource that you can use or you can provide to a victim. And I know also many of your transportation systems now have initiatives that, give you ways that you can help support human trafficking victims. And so I want to, again, thank you for your time and attention. And I also want to thank the transportation industry for being proactive and getting involved in this issue. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your conference.
Thank you so much, Nola. It is another one of those issues that I know most of us think, oh, well, that can't happen here. Well, it does, and it's something that I need to learn more about, and I think all of us need to be more aware of and get involved in when we can. Thank you again to Mayor Garcetti. Let's hear it once more from Mayor Garcetti, making his way down here to talk to us. So we were off to the afternoon breakout sessions, again, second floor of the Magic Kingdom Ballroom. There are ushers and wayfinding signs for those of you whose eyes are as bad as mine. Once you get out there, they'll lead you up the stairs. And then we'll be back here for a closing session, which will feature a panel of leading experts on infrastructure, safety, and the Olympic bid. That will start back in this room promptly at 3 p.m. And we will also be announcing the raffle prize winners. And if you are eligible for a Disney Twilight ticket, those tickets are down to $1,200 now. They will be available at the customer service booth at 4:15 p.m., immediately after the closing session. So thank you. We'll see you back here at 3 o'clock.
Your picture perfect blue, sunbathing